what that allows me to do is it allows me to be observant. And then the observance is where you get the gems, right? The discovery.
Oh. Learning to swim is about learning from others. Be the author of your own story, not a character in somebody else's story. Get inspired by others to take action. Learn how to set goals to exceed your own expectations. So often the answer that you are looking for is right in front of you. On Learning to Swim, we highlight those answers through storytelling. Welcome. I have the pleasure of speaking with Kate Katz today, and I have to say you are my very first guest. This has been a long time in the making, and I want to thank you so much for being here, and in particular because you really inspired me I have been thinking about this way too long. I've been essentially overthinking it for way too long. So participating in your most recent kind of beta testing of a workshop that was fantastic really inspired me today. So thank you so much.
I am so honored to be here. Thank you so much. I love our conversations. I love our relationship. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, to everyone out there who ends up watching this, we are doing this during COVID. And we live in the same city, yet we have never met in person. We were introduced through a mutual colleague that we both really respect and adore. And I think, Kate and I have been able to develop a relationship of mutual respect and adoration as well. So
all via Zoom.
Yeah, totally. So I do want to do a brief introduction and feel free to add anything. Kate is the owner and founder of All Hands In, and this is a soft skills development company. Now, Kate has what I would consider a highly unusual background, and it's so fascinating to me. So she's a puppeteer. And I think you may be the first puppeteer I've ever met.
We're a small group.
Okay. So I'm not alone in saying that to you.
No, I think the majority would fall in your camp.
Okay. So your background as a puppeteer actually has given you a very unique perspective when it comes to interpersonal skills like awareness, adaptability, and communication. So your work at All Hands In is you use the tools of puppetry to bring a practical approach to developing these skills, so soft skills, in leaders and teams looking to improve culture within their organizations.
Yep, that's 100%. That's 100% it.
Well, and I would say yes, and I will have I certainly will have a link to your website available for folks because as I mentioned, I was able to experience one of Kate's online workshops firsthand, and it was absolutely remarkable.
Oh, thank you.
So, well, let's dive in to the very first Learning to Swim interview. And I'm just going to, especially given this moment in time, I'm going to ask you, what does resilience mean to you?
Every day I get out of bed. These days, it is literally every day I get out of bed is resilience. It's funny because that has been a term that I have carried with me the majority of my life. I come from a dysfunctional family. I come from an adult child of alcoholics. So resilience is something that I have learned how to really embrace in order to thrive and in order to have really productive, healthy relationships in my life, including relationships with my family, right? And so it's one of the things that when my therapists mentioned resilience, it always felt like such a warrior, and it still does. Like resilience to me carries a lot of warrior connotations with it, but it's very interesting to see how warrior energy shows up in the moment that we're in right now, because it's not so much about, saving civilization as it is about like practicing self-care, right? That those different dynamics. And I think prior to COVID, I would not have associated the behaviors that I currently associate now with resilience, because it would have seemed so trite and so simple. But when it's distilled down to a level of survival, finding joy, like the days that I just have my music turned up and I'm dancing around and I'm singing in my apartment, that's all resilient. That's all resilient behavior right now. So that's really what comes up for me when I think about it.
Well, I love that. I love that, because I do feel like that is a word that a lot of times can kind of bring up that warrior feeling. And so I love that you're associating it with joy as well. That's thank you for that.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I think these questions were formulated pre-COVID. And so
that's going to be so much fun. I love that. That's going to be great.
So the other question, because I think resilience and grit are one of those, buzzwords that was going around. And then the other thing is failure. So
yeah.
I would love to ask you, what does failure look like to you?
It's interesting because I have really worked on my relationship with failure. And failure is always something that, it's like I talk about fear and I talk about failure, like riding in the car with me in my entrepreneurial journey, right, in my life journey. And failure is one of those things that will it will always be in the car with me, right? It's just a matter of where it gets placed. And sometimes I just want failure to be in the trunk. Like sometimes you just need to live in the trunk for right now on this ride. But I think that having the awareness that failure it's a relationship that you get to have. We all have it. Like we all have that relationship with failure. The agency that we have over that is determining and deciding what our relationship will look like. And so I have my moments with failure where failure can be really hard and failure can be really difficult and failure can be really punishing. But failure is also a massive learning experience. It is a massive growth and development experience. I look back on my previous failures and I'm grateful for all of my past failures. Every single one of my past failures, I now have gratitude for. However, when I'm in a failure, when I'm experiencing failure, I'm a 4-year-old, right? And I recognize that about myself. I'm like, I know this is going to be good for me eventually, but I don't like this right now. I don't want to go through this right now. This is terrible. And so I have to remember the fact that like, which of your past failures do you regret? Because I don't regret any of them.
Well, I would agree with you 100%. And I do. And so I think when I am talking with other business owners and especially when you're thinking about teams and having trust within a team, nobody wants to fail. It's hard enough when you fail yourself, but and then failing in front of other people, particularly people who have the ability to promote us or recommend us. I mean, it's just, and I agree with you 100% that there's not a single solitary one. I mean, of my past failures have all been tremendous growth moments, but boy, I tell you, in the moment, ooh, God, it's brutal sometimes.
It just zaps the zen right out of you. I mean, it really does. You could think you stand on one level and failure shows up and you get grounded pretty quick.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the other thing is that I think there's another buzzword out there and I am a big user of this is I talk a lot about creativity when I'm working with folks and when I'm presenting myself and and really the way I am talking about creativity is really around problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that, so this question kind of comes from that, which is, how do you remain curious, whether it be in your professional or personal life? How do you cultivate or sustain a level of curiosity and kind of even the willingness to be experience awe?
Yeah, for me and my personal life, so it comes from my personal life that's where that gets channeled through, right? It's and then I bring that personal energy into my professional life. But for me, it starts in my personal life, and it starts with always being present and maintaining my awareness. And it comes down to, like, for me, I'm a big proponent of eye contact and a smile, and it's hard to do right now with the mask. But like when I go for walks, and my sister jokes that I'm like the mayor of Echo Park, because like I'll go for a walk in my neighborhood, and like every neighbor I say hello to, good morning, eye contact, their pets, we all have conversations. Like I am very focused on how I show up in my neighborhood, how I show up in the unit that I live in, how I should, like my immediate circle, right? So like I am very vigilant about maintaining awareness and presence in that environment, and then it just expands from there. And what that allows me to do, because I'm being present and because I have this, just practicing these awareness skills on really, really basic levels, right? Like hello and good morning. I'm talking about eye contact with hello and good morning. What that allows me to do is it allows me to be observant. And then the observance is where you get the gems, right? The discovery.
Oh, yeah.
The observations are where you can, start to have the threads of stories come in. And that's where your curiosity comes in. But if you're completely walled off from that, it's so much harder to do, right? And in LA, we have so many walls that we're able to just voluntarily put around us. We're in our cars, we go to our homes, we have, and then with our 21st century lifestyle, we have our streaming channels that we can watch. Like we can do everything to our comfort level. Like we can cultivate everything to our comfort level. And for me, getting out and going for the walks and interacting with my neighbors, it forces me out of that comfort level. And interacting with other people, like that forces you out of your comfort level. And it's really one of the only ways that you, especially these days, if you're not forcing yourself out of that comfort level, you're not growing and developing, you're not getting that curiosity because you're not experiencing new things.
Yes, I would agree with you 100%. I think about that. I think about, even just even in getting directions now, right?
Right, exactly, 100%, right.
And that there's kind of that, there's so much to gain, whether it's a funny moment or a great story or interacting with someone that you wouldn't be normally interacting with, by getting lost once in a while.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
I have one colleague who really, really enjoys going to the grocery store. And we were discussing that is kind of one of those few moments, if you're still going to the grocery store, where you don't know who you're going to run into, right? As opposed to going to, even if you're going to this is all kind of pre-COVID, but your favorite restaurant. I mean, you're kind of likely to run into either people like you or
people, right?
Whatever. But these places where we would run in, or going to the airport.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
My sister, I miss traveling so much right now. And we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago where she was like, I just want to go through security. Like never in a million years, right? Never in a million years. She's like, I just want to go through security and sit at the gate.
I know. Oh my goodness. Well, tell me what is, and it may have changed for you, but what is your best simple habit?
I'm trying to think my best simple habit.
Or one of your top 5?
Oh God, it's gonna sound so vain. This is so vain, but it really, like, I'm not a creature of habit. I recognize that, like, I fall in and out of cycles for a lot of things. But my skincare routine, I am
There you
habitual
go.
about my skincare routine. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you for
welcome.
being so honest. And so, one word to describe your professional journey.
Ooh. One word.
I know.
One word to describe my professional journey. I would have to say it's an adventure. It's been an adventure. It has been an adventure.
Excellent. And what about if you had to pick one word to describe your life up to this point?
Ooh. I just have the deepest sense of gratitude when I look at my life on every level. I'm just very grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. And so going back to kind of your professional life, what was your first paid position?
Oh, like for like in anything? It was
In
babysitting.
anything.
Babysitting. My Aunt
Okay.
Sisty, I had to babysit my cousin Jill, and I think that I was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how old was your charge?
Oh God, how old was Jilly at that point? I think Jilly may have been like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, big. And they lived in a duplex, and my grandmother's right next door, right? So like it wasn't like just watch this kid and I'll be gone.
Right.
But yeah, it was. I think about that a lot because for the women in my family, babysitting, we had so many cousins, so babysitting was a lot of our first jobs, and it was a lot of learning how to care and learning and continuing that play, right? Because I'm 13, I'm kind of falling out of that play period in my life. But when you have these younger cousins, it's constantly getting reinforced. Yeah.
Fun. And oh, well, you kind of answered my second question, which is any connection to your current position?
Very much. I never wanted to give up play.
Yeah.
That was something that I remember being very young and like the questions being asked of like, what do you want to do when you're an adult? And I was like, and even as a young kid, I was like, I just want to play. Like everything about adulting doesn't look fun to me. So whatever you guys are doing, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Like I want to find the thing that I get to just be a kid in as an adult. And then I remember years later recognizing that Sesame Street, like there were people under the puppets, right? Recognizing like that was a job. And then I think that I was watching like a behind the scenes for like Star Trek or one of the special effects shows, and they were interviewing one of the creatives behind it. And they asked him why he does what he does for a living. And he said, what are you kidding me? I get to play all day. I get paid to play. And I remember being like 10 and my head shot up and I was like, I want that job. That's it. That's what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So what is your in plain sight talent?
My in plain sight talent. So if I were to let me translate that. Is that like my obvious talent?
Yeah.
I would like to say that when people see me, they see joy, like that I have a talent for joy.
Yeah.
That's my hope. Some days I show up better at that than others, but overall, I think that's how I would like to be seen.
I think you do that very well.
Thank
for
you.
Sure. And then conversely, any hidden talents? Or the ones that you kind of might reveal more slowly?
The things that I am slow to reveal, like the dating things that kind of get like brought out as time goes on. I am definitely somebody who is very passionate about the state of the world. I'm a very deep thinker. I think about the human connectivity in all aspects of our global community, and how that relate, and how that all, like, where the connections are to all of those things, our planet, each other, you know, the economy, all of it. That's something that, I mean, for my friends that know me well, they're like, yeah, I mean, that's probably your obvious, you probably stated your obvious talent is your hidden talent, and your hidden talent is your obvious talent. But it's something that I try not to bring to the table immediately.
Yeah. And, oh, well, again, this was, so I'm always, because I love to travel. And as we just mentioned, you know, at this point, we'd be happy going through security.
Pretty much.
But where would your next trip be, and why?
New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. I mean, how many months have we been in COVID? Every morning I get up, my Spotify, I've got 6 different New Orleans playlists on Spotify. It is my second home. So I'm originally from the East Coast, New York and Connecticut. My grandmother on my father's side, it was from New Orleans.
Okay.
And so every year since I was 8, we were flying down to see cousins. And so that is very much my second home.
Oh, nice. And what's your favorite holiday?
Ooh, that's a good one. You know,
and you could include your birthday as part,
and I can include my birthday
as one of the options.
Okay, good. You know, it's funny because the last couple of years, Thanksgiving shot up on my list. But it came from this place of like really wanting to sit in gratitude, like really wanting to spend a day, like a full day to a week, just focusing on gratitude, which is, it turns out that's one of my core values, right? Gratitude and joy. And I realized when I was coming around to that, I was like, oh my God, Thanksgiving may be like your favorite holiday, which for so many people, that's like the most boring, like you're just, you know, you're sitting around eating turkey all day. But for me, it really took on a whole new meaning when I really just sat with the gratitude aspect of that holiday.
Well, I actually, I love Thanksgiving. I'm right there.
Do you really?
I do. Yeah. I love the opportunity to gather family.
Right.
And whether that's family of origin or your chosen family.
Right, chosen family out in LA, right.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And so I love that. And I love the fact that it's not kind of tainted with the you know, did you get the right present? Did you right. All that kind of stuff.
Right, right. It's the stress of the commercialism.
Yeah.
Right.
So right. I love Thanksgiving. And so do you have dreams where you fly?
Yeah, it's interesting. I do have dreams where I fly. I haven't had them in a while, and I feel like I experienced them a lot more when I was younger. But I definitely have them still.
Yeah.
Is that, so what is that associated with? Because I can't remember. What's the association?
I can't either, but I do remember having, I mean, those are still some of the most vivid dreams that I can remember from being young. And it's funny because for me, my flying dreams, none of them are remotely, it never felt harrowing or like it was a dangerous thing to be doing.
Right. It's just liberating.
Like I never worried about landing or crashing or anything like that. And, but you just were flying and it was the best feeling ever.
Now I have had dreams where I had been flying and the dream was not clear, but I felt impact. Like I would wake up feeling impact. That was always interesting. Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll have one now that we've talked about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
And if you were going to, what's your animal? I mean, when you...
Yeah, the spirit animal, otter. Always otter.
Oh. Well, could you...
Yeah, otters, man. I love, they are really like, they embody so much of my own energy, the playfulness, the joy, the way that the community sort of coalesce around each other. You know, they hold hands when they're in the water, and they don't want to separate from each other. Like, there's just so much about otters that just bring me a really wonderful connection.
Well, I do remember going to, like, as a kid, like going to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and that's like one of the favorite things is to watch the otters, because they're so darn cute.
They're adorable, and they're thinkers, they're problem solvers. The way that they interact with nature, there's just there are a lot of things about them that I think human beings, if we spend a little more time with otters, we could be better off in a lot of ways.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So there was a question, I hadn't really planned on asking this, but based on what I loved this imagery that you touched upon earlier in our conversation, when we were talking about failure, and you were talking about riding in the car with fear and failure. And I was curious if you feel like your background or your training as a puppeteer in creating kind of these extensions of yourself has informed how you think about sitting with different feelings and emotions, and so that's kind of the first part of the question. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Like, has my background as a puppeteer informed how I sit with a variety of emotions?
Yeah.
And
and then also, I'm wondering if it's if you find it, if that is the case, do you find that it is it helpful kind of across the spectrum of emotions? Do you find it kind of more helpful for some of those uncomfortable emotions? What does it look like?
So it's interesting, because I can only speak from my experience. I can't speak for general puppeteers. I don't think that all of us sit with these things this way. But, I had a background prior to going into school for puppetry. I had a background in acting. And so acting is a really wonderful skill. And again, like, talking about here really is extensions of play, which is another reason why I am always advocating for play to be used in adult settings, because, we tend to put it in a box around 13. We all have to, go out and get a job, or, go feed the man, or whatever nonsense you're being told. And there's a disconnect that happens as we become adults and we do not continue to engage in play. And acting and puppetry are one of those areas that you have to do some emotional processing, because you're inhabiting a character, right? You have to kind of understand what emotional ranges are if you successfully want to present a believable character. But what I will say from my personal experience is that I really didn't start to get clarity for myself, right? Because the thing about puppetry is it's a tool, you can use it. And this is also one of the reasons why I transitioned over to puppetry. Even though I always wanted to do it when I was a kid, I stumbled for many years developing the confidence to go out and pursue it, because it seemed so ambitious. It took me years to apply to graduate school for puppetry. So, what I'll say during that period is that, like, the puppet is experiencing emotions. I'm putting that energy as a puppeteer into that puppet, right? It's a conduit. But then when I put that puppet down, I walk away and I go back to my life. And one of the reasons why I like that was because I recognized when I was in theater, I had a number of colleagues that could never leave the stage. And it's not a judgment call. It was just something that I didn't want for my own life. I wanted to have an authentic connection with myself. So years later, really, having a roadmap for emotions was important. And I think that puppetry helped to give me that. But sitting with those emotions and internalizing those emotions and developing the awareness and the embrace of those emotions without the shame or the judgment or the ridicule or all the other things that we put on top of it, that really came from deeper processing with some wonderful therapists and my own ability to step up in a courageous manner and go, not recognizing at the time that, like, something like shame, right? Like, processing shame is so hard. It's so hard. It's so draining. It's terrifying. You have to put a mirror up in front of you where there are times when that reflection might not look anything like you, and you have to unpack all of that. And so, I was given a vocabulary, but just because you're given the vocabulary, that doesn't mean that you know how to articulate.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you know how to pronounce correctly. It doesn't mean that you know how to utilize that word in a sentence.
Exactly.
And that's where therapy really became very helpful.
Well, thank you so much. With your, again, one of the things that I love about you is that you are able to be very authentic and so honest in a really not kind of it's in such a inviting way. And really, I know that part of the reason why I enjoy our conversations so much is I feel like I'm always learning so much, and I'm kind of I definitely will have different things that I think about after we've talked. So
I love hearing that.
Oh, absolutely.
My perspective is that I'm not unique. I think that my human experience is very much like a lot of other people's human experiences. And we don't discover that unless we're showing up with, vulnerable and authentic and willing to expose. And because the other thing is, like, I also am in a constant state of wanting to learn and being observant. Get that unless you show up to the space ready to embrace and listen to another person, right? And sit and observe another person's experience, hold space for that. Thank you for allowing me that.
Oh, for sure. Well, I have my final question is there a question that you wish I had asked you?
Oh, is there a question? You asked, first of all, you've asked some really amazing questions today.
Oh, well, thank you
for that. You've given me some questions that I was like, oh, I haven't thought about that in a while. And I love that I'm thinking about this right now. I'm trying to think if there's a question that you haven't asked that I was hoping you would. I mean, we've talked about a lot of the things that I'm currently going through right now, I would say, what I would like to talk about, though, we kind of touched on it, but the biggest challenges that for me, particularly during COVID, right? Like, how
so say that
COVID,
again, because you froze just a little bit.
Is that COVID has, like, what are the challenges that COVID has brought up for me?
Okay.
And what have I had to confront that I have not confronted prior to? Hopefully this.
I think we're frozen a little bit. So you were saying you were going to bring up, you're saying that what are the challenges that COVID had brought up for you and how to manage that? So
yeah, how to manage it. So for me, I live by myself. Like, I live in a community-centered space. I have a guest house behind a main house, but I have my and so for me, one, recognizing that I'm on my own in this time, and one of the things that I am constantly grateful for every morning is that it's really given me time to sit with myself and realize that I like myself, right? That I enjoy being with myself. Not that I don't miss my friends, not that I'm not connected to my family, the stillness that this has given and the stillness that I have taken in these moments, and the challenge, because I know a lot of my friends are struggling with this right now, and particularly with friends who do live alone, what to do when you're by yourself. And I think, I could have made the choice to avoid a lot of, the choice could have been to avoid, right? A lot of avoidance. But I'm really glad that I have sat with myself in some time. It's lonely. Like, lonely shows up now. Lonely used to bowl me over, and because I didn't experience it enough. So when it did show up, it was always underneath all this other stuff. And I remember having to call my sister and having to explain to her, I don't feel centered. I'm confused. I want to eat, but I'm not hungry. And I'd go through all this, and she'd go, Kate, you are lonely. She'd literally have to say that to me because I just I didn't understand it. And now, courtesy of COVID, loneliness shows up on a regular basis. And I'm like, it's loneliness. Lonely's here again. All right, just go. You know how to work through this. Just go through it, which is amazing, right? That's
right.
Such an amazing gift. Would I have not wanted to have that and gotten rid of COVID instead? I mean, that's up for discussion. That's up for debate, because this has been just so shitty. But
I know.
General consensus is that the challenges of being by myself right now have actually proven to be very fruitful.
Well, thank you again for your time. And I have been speaking with Kate Katz of All Hands In, and her information will be with this video. So please check out her website. And I cannot wait for us to be in the same physical space at one point in time, and looking forward to working together really soon.
I know. I can't wait to see you in person. All right, love. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our goal is to inspire others and share stories to find meaning in your daily life. Let go of the traditional norms and be yourself at home, work, and beyond. The awareness of bright spots and blind spots is a performance-enhancing tool that you can apply to your life and to your organization today.